Hi everyone, it's Tim. In previous videos, I've talked about playing D&D and GURPS and LP MUDs. In this video, I want to talk about how my game playing really took off when I started Interplay. Now, I thought I was a game player as a kid, in high school and college, but nothing prepared me for just how much game playing went on at Interplay after I started. Now, this is pretty much after I got hired, so in early 92, to about when Fallout kicked into high gear in 95, which also corresponds to about the time we switched buildings. Interplay had 4 buildings in the 6 years I was there: Susan, Fitch, Alton, and Von Karman. By far, the most game playing I remember doing was in the Fitch Building. Probably because by the time we moved to Alton, it was hard to get everybody together. And in Von Karman, we were just, noses to the grindstone on Fallout. The Susan building, which was where I was originally hired into, I was upstairs in a foyer, um, stuck between 2 producers. People from QA would shoot paper clips at me, including Eric DeMilt, who would later on become producer of Fallout 2, my producer at Carbine and at Obsidian. He's only 18, so cut him some slack. He and a bunch of other people, when you'd come to Interplay at night, there were always people there. You could drop by Interplay at 10 p.m. on a random day, Sunday night, there would be people there. Sometimes they were working, sometimes they were just playing. By the time we got to the Fitch building, though, I think the reason things really took off is everybody was in one building, big L-shaped building, and there was a wonderful conference room that had a big circular table, which is perfect for gaming at. There was also a racquetball court. And I had played racquetball a lot at UCI, so I started a racquetball newsletter. I called myself Dr. Rackethead. We had a ladder. People would play and tell me who won, and I'd adjust the ladder every week. But what that meant was I was mailing a lot of people I didn't normally talk to. I mean, there were 2 people. I was pretty good at racquetball, and sometimes I was on the top tier, even in the top slot. But there was an accountant, Larry Fukuoka, and one of the VPs, Phil Adam, who could crush me every game. And I actually like that because it's fun to play with people who are so good. I learned so much just watching them crush me. So that was fun, but it also meant I met a lot more people. I was being a lot more social than I normally was. We started playing lots of different games, not just role-playing games, but board games, card games, dice games. We had done it a little bit in the Susan building. I kind of remember playing Wiz War a little bit in that building. Wiz War is a little board game that you assemble the board. I've talked about it. Wizards try to collect treasures or kill other wizards. We played it so much more when we moved to the Fitch building. And we played it so much that we started inventing our own cards. We invented so many that we mailed them back to Jolly Games. Tom Jolly made the original Wiz War, and then it went to Chessex. But we mailed them all of our instructions for the cards. And that was fun. I mean, we were just so into it. That was the time I was making all my GURPS apps, the Star System Generator, the character editor. We actually had a weekly meeting called the Thursday Night Thing. Now, like I said, you could come any day of the week and there would be people there. But Thursday Night Thing was kind of a planned thing. Everybody would stop what they were doing around 7:30, go out and grab food, and we'd meet back in the conference room around that big round table, and we would play games. Every week, it felt like we just did different things. A huge thing was playing with Atari Lynxes, which was a really cool little handheld, color, multiplayer. Most of their games could multiplayer to 5 or 6. Some of them, like Todd's Adventure and Slime World, could go up to 8. We played those games so much that we had developed a pattern to how to connect our wires together, because they were wired, they weren't wireless. If everybody brought a cord, we would call it a star pattern, where everybody just threw it into the center and we connected them together. That meant it easy for people to leave because they could just unplug theirs and connect the 2 neighbors. However, there was one person, you know who you are, Wes, who wouldn't buy a cable. So when he came, we had to do a ring pattern where everybody connected to the person to the right and it went around. And then for n people to do a ring, you only needed n minus 1 chords. Yes, we got really nerdy about figuring out patterns of connection. We played so many of these multiplayer games. Multiplayer wasn't that big in PC. There were a few multiplayer games. I mean, Doom and Quake were coming into their own, but it was so much fun to play these little Lynx games with each other. And we played a ton of Wiz War. We also played Bomberman on the SNES. We had the SNES multi-tap that connected to the second player port, which let 4 more people join. So you could have 5 people play one game. Now, the American Bomberman only had 4 people. They would start in each corner. The Japanese Bomberman not only had different characters, but there was a 5th person who could start in the middle. We played that game so much. We had terms. When you started, usually we're in a corner and you could only go left or right. If you dropped your bomb before you went left or right, it would blow up down those 2 hallways and kill yourself. We called that corner heading. We had all these terms. Everybody had favorite characters. It was a great multiplayer game because so many people could play it once. And if there were more than 5 people, a game only lasted a few minutes. And we had rules like if there were a lot of people waiting, if you won, you stayed and the other 4 people had to get up and let other 4 people join. Sometimes we only had 1 or 2 people waiting. And then the rule was they took the position of whoever died first in the round, which was sometimes hard to tell because one bomb could take out multiple people at the same time. That was also my first experience. I played GURPS Supers, but we played Champions, which was a tabletop role-playing game that's only about supers. I still remember my character. I think Spencer Kipe, who was originally going to be the lead artist on Fallout. I think he ran the session, but I wanted a character who just had luck. I was fascinated by luck, and I think this is what influenced me wanting luck in Fallout. There was so many levels of luck you could buy that determined how frequently and how good your luck was. I had this character buy them all. Luck, ridiculous luck, extraordinary luck, super luck. He had all of them. Effectively, what that meant was every time he rolled, he'd roll 3 times and take the best. If anyone attacked him, they'd take 3 rolls and take the worst. Now, to buy all this luck was really expensive because they made it very expensive. This is a powerful ability. My character had to take a lot of disadvantages. I had him take youth. He was 14. Poor. Missing leg. Missing arm. Missing eye. And this was in the rules, so no offense to anyone. And yes, I had speech therapy as well when I was in elementary school. Stuttering. His name was Lucky Boy. Everyone was afraid of Lucky Boy. Even the other superheroes were afraid. So we kind of had a rule. We all belonged to a city superhero council. I forget what we called it. When a villain would attack the city, the other superheroes would shoot off to that villain. They'd fly, they'd teleport, they'd run at super speed, leaving Lucky Boy at the headquarters. Now, Lucky Boy couldn't drive. He didn't have a driver's license. He was 14. And he was poor. But Lucky Boy had a bus pass. So he would get on the bus, often having to take transfers. So Lucky Boy would always arrive late. And our rule was, if the other heroes could take care of the villain before Lucky Boy got there, great. If the villain was still rampaging by the time Lucky Boy arrived, everybody backed up. Lucky Boy would get off the bus and just walk up to the villain and try to punch him or something. Now keep in mind, Lucky Boy would often get critical. So even though he wasn't strong and he was missing an arm and he had to hop over he only had a missing leg and he couldn't afford prosthetics because he was poor, he would punch him and often get a critical. And it would say knock him down or knock him back. Eventually the villain would get really mad and aim one of his attacks at Lucky Boy. That was the villain's huge mistake. They'd roll 3 times. They'd almost always fail, but they would usually critically fail. Heat beams would get reflected back onto the villain. Things they'd throw, they'd drop and hurt themselves. Grenades they'd throw would slip and explode at their feet. If they had other, super breath or any other superpowers, it would somehow malfunction and mess them up. several times villains would basically hurt themselves. The other superheroes would just sit back and let them knock themselves out. But occasionally they'd get so hurt from Lucky Boy that one of the other superheroes could just come up and go, okay, I've grabbed you. That was the funniest character. It was also fun because the DM got to figure out how Lucky Boy's luck manifested. I loved it. Went into Fallout. That's my point of this entire story. You never know where your ideas are going to come from. You never know what hobby, what fun activity, something you didn't plan to do, but your friends are doing and you do it too. I did a whole talk about how Disneyland inspired my level design. You just never know. The design part of your brain is always going to be going day and night, at work after hours, at Disneyland. I love that. I love that part of design. That there's some part of your brain that's always just thinking about things and chewing on stuff. If you want to be a designer, just all I can say is stay open to that. Don't focus just on video games. Don't focus just on the genre of video games you make. I make RPGs, but I play a lot of different things. You never know what element you're going to see somewhere that will inspire you in your game. And who knows, you may be the first person to do that in your game genre. You might not, but you might have a new and fresh take on it. That's what's important. So yeah, this really long set of stories had that as its motto, which is just stay open, keep yourself open to all the different experiences you have and see how that can work in your games, because it will.